welcome back to another exciting episode of CUNY Uncut, where we talk about anything and everything, uncensored, unedited, and uncut. I'm your host, Isabel Ortiz, and today I am joined by a truly remarkable guest. He's a current CUNY grad student and a tireless advocate working with lead organizations to raise awareness on issues affecting those who are survivors of human trafficking, members of the LGBTQ community, and immigrants. With that being said, I would love to give a very warm welcome to Cristian Eduardo. Hi, Cristian. How are you doing today?
Hi, Isabel. Thank you. I'm doing good. I'm very excited, actually, today.
Well, I'm super excited that you're here because I feel like all the work you're doing is really inspiring, and especially talking about issues that are affecting people who are survivors and who are victims of human trafficking is extremely important, especially because I feel like it's not talked about enough, or if it is, it's kind of glimmed over and scanned over, you know? And something I really appreciate about you is how vulnerable and how honest you are in your advocacy work, especially with sharing your own personal story. And I know when people usually get into this work, it's because they have had a personal experience with it. So for you, how did you really get involved, and why did you get involved? What was your personal experience?
Yes, it's interesting because I started doing all this work since I arrived here to the United States. I have been living here in New York City for almost 9 years, and I started doing advocacy around immigrants and LGBTQ plus rights. But after my trafficking experience and really looking for support and services, it was really, really a hard part. There were almost non-existent services for males. A lot of times, as an immigrant, I wasn't able to speak English as fluent as now. So there were a lot of barriers. And 4 years ago, I was invited to participate actually in a panel in Hunter College. It was about legislation around human trafficking. And I asked myself, do I want to do this? Do I want to speak about human trafficking? Do I want to speak about my experience? And in that moment, I really wasn't expecting for me to disclose my human trafficking experience because I was afraid. I was like, what if my traffickers hear about this? What if the people who abuse me hear about this? What if there are consequences? I was feeling ashamed, afraid. I was feeling like a lot of things inside me. But at the same time, I realized that nobody else was speaking for immigrants. Nobody else was speaking for male survivors. Nobody else was speaking for Latinos. Nobody else was speaking for people who weren't able to speak in English. So that was really my motivation to start speaking about it. And the reality it was that my goal continued being like to, with my voice, it's not about like, I don't know, like being famous or being like, the survivor, all these things. It's to really connect with the community and tell the community like, if you are going through something hard, there are support services and you are not alone.
Yeah, and I feel too, you touched on this, but this idea that some people, when they go into like this kind of line of work about being an advocate, it's almost sometimes like performative activism. And I think if you're going into it for those reasons, that's horrible, you know? And you speaking on being a survivor yourself, why do you think it is such a pivotal thing that you are the person that's really giving a voice to this issue and going around and speaking to these problems? Like, what role do you think you can play in really making change?
Yeah, I think that it's very, very important for survivors to speak about, because there are things that a survivor or someone that you have experienced human trafficking or any form of gender-based violence or any form of abuse that you cannot learn on books, that you cannot learn, in class, that you cannot learn in schools. There are certain things that you experience, and a lot of times even there's no a description of it. And the reality is that I went through the experience, I survived the experience, I look up for and I search for the services. I went through all this odyssey of looking for services. I received the services, I went through the services, and also I did a lot of healing to arrive to where I am right now. And it's not only that, it's also that I'm in contact with the community. Like, I don't want to stop being from the community, because I feel that a lot of times where is happening what you were saying. People become really performative and they start disconnecting from the community. Like, I continue bringing back to my community, educating the community, connecting with the community, talking with other survivors and all these things. And I think that all this continuum, it's what bring power to my voice. Like, because it's not only my experience, but it's really the experience of the whole community. And a lot of times I know what is failing in the community. I know what it's failing for the service providers, are not what can be improved. And I know a lot of times what those communities cannot say, and a lot of times I have the privilege to be in their rooms, so I can bring those voices to the table.
This idea of you being able to be, because I feel like maybe a lot of people who haven't gone through the experience maybe can't relate to somebody who has gone through it on like a personal level. Like, I feel like if you're speaking to somebody who has also gone through it, there's that personal connection and kind of safety that you feel. Because I know you mentioned it when you first got here and you were seeking out these services, you were a little fearful. So, like, what advice could you give to people who are maybe just escaping human trafficking? What advice can you give to those people who are fearful of maybe speaking out and seeking out those services?
Yeah, I would say that for everyone out there, if you suspect that you're a victim of human trafficking, or you find yourself in a situation of exploitation, first, your safety is your priority. Second, things are going to get better, and this is coming for someone. Trust me, I was in one point of my life 9 years ago. I was here, no friends, no family, no money, no immigration status. Like, I didn't have anything. I didn't know how to start. I didn't know what to do, but things get better. I'm not telling you that things are going to get better just in one moment. Tomorrow, probably things are going to get worse, but things are going to get better. There's going to be a time when things are going to get better. Don't lose hope. And the other part is that in New York City, at least here in the United States, in each state, there are services, there is people who is going to support you, because you never consent to exploitation. You cannot consent to be trafficked. Yeah, if it's sex or labor exploitation, it wasn't your fault. It was the fault of the perpetrators and the exploiters. Even if you feel like it was your fault, it wasn't your fault. So have that compassion, that kindness for yourself, because you deserve it. And regardless all the decisions that you have made, you're still a human being, and you deserve all that love and all that support.
You mentioned a lot about community, and I know CUNY is a community in itself. So when you arrived at CUNY, what resources did you find when you got there? Were there any resources that you felt were really helpful?
There are two amazing services at all CUNY schools that I'm always recommending. As a survivor, as a human, as an immigrant, as a Latino, and I really emphasize as a Latino because I think that we have a lot of stereotypes around mental health. There are two services that I really encourage all students to go. Maybe they have different names at your CUNY campus, but is the counseling center or the counseling service, where they can support you with mental health. They can give you therapy sessions. It's a great resource that I have used more than one time. It has been extremely, extremely helpful. They can support you with your mental health. It can be associated with a school or with things outside of school. And the other service is the Office of Disability. I think that it's not mentioned enough. Mental health can impact how you are doing in school, and the Office of Disability can truly support you. I want to really emphasize this because I think that as students, we are through a lot of stress, through a lot of pressure from society, through a lot of pressure from family. Like, it's society wants us to decide all our life while we are in college, and that is not realistic. So of course this is going to impact our mental health, and I think that of course this is going to impact how we are doing in a school. So I really encourage everyone, don't wait until you're about to explode, until you are feeling you cannot do it anymore. If you are feeling depressed, anxious, if you are feeling extremely nervous, if you cannot sleep, if you are failing with your classes, if you are failing with attendance, if you are having problems with your homework, with deadlines, go to the counseling center of the Office of Counseling Services at the Office of Disability, and they are going to be able to support you. And trust me, they don't judge. They are very open. They are very welcoming. And regardless what is your background, they are going to be there to support you.
Yeah, and I feel like, too, even myself, you see those services in the syllabus every year, but it's always in the back, and the professors sometimes they can't get through it all, so they skim through it, and a lot of people don't realize that that service is available to them, and most of the time for free, you know? So,
yes.
Yeah. So if you can really utilize that service, you should. And especially, like, I know you touched on this, as a college student, you're really balancing a lot. And for you, you're a college student, and you're doing all this work. So I wondered, though, because you are in your own journey of healing and mental health. So how does really doing all this work and balancing that really come together?
It is hard, to be honest. I'm not gonna lie. There are days that I think that everybody knows me because everybody's like, "You're always smiling. We love your smile. We love your energy, and all these things." But the reality is that there's a lot of work behind it. The reality is that there is a village taking care of me. It's really a support network that I have behind me. It's my primary doctor who is taking care of me around HIV, taking my medication also. I go to therapy twice a week. I see my psychiatrist once every month. I take my medication related with mental health every single morning. And I also have really my support network, who are like my chosen family, and my friends. And I really, really rely on them. There are days, to be honest, that I don't want to do anything. I have mental health challenges. I deal with depression, anxiety. I deal with PTSD. I deal with nightmares and all these things. And it is hard, but I think that finding your support network, creating your support network, and doing your part. And when I'm saying doing your part, it's not willpower. It's not like, like, oh, just try it. Just try to smile. That's toxic positivity. To be honest, like, toxic positivity doesn't heal depression, anxiety, or any of those things. The reality is that do your part is going to your appointments. Do your part is reaching out. I know that it's hard, but when I'm feeling bad, I reach out to my friends. Like, it's one of those days. I'm feeling bad, and they text me like, "Is there something that I can do for you?" And I'm like, maybe no. Like, I just want to let you know, like, I'm feeling bad. And sometimes they send me soup, and it's like, maybe this can help you, or it's like, do you want to have a call later? And I'm like, no, but I appreciate it. Like,
it's that open communication with your friends, I think, is important.
Yes. Even one time, like, sometimes I deal with severe depression, and sometimes I cannot do my dishes or clean my house or things like that. And I have one friend that it was like, "I'm going to your house to help you with the cleaning of your apartment." And I was like, "No, please, I'm gonna cry." And she was like, "No, it's totally fine. It's not the end of the world." And I was like, "It's the end of the world for me. Like, I should be able to do this. I'm an adult." And she was like, "Don't worry."
Yeah. Sometimes you need the help, though, and that's not a bad thing. And especially you explained that your doctors, your friends are all this community for you, and it's like a village. And you mentioned that you are HIV positive. And I think you being very open and honest about it is refreshing, because I think a lot of people wouldn't be. So for you, what makes you be so open about your HIV status?
It's interesting because when I arrived here and I was diagnosed, I thought I was gonna die, to be honest.
Yeah.
It's sad because when I was a kid, one of my cousins died from AIDS,
Oh, yeah.
and they didn't allow me and other members of the family to go to the funeral.
Oh, wow.
So when I was diagnosed, and this happened in Mexico. So when I was diagnosed, I thought, oh, now I'm gonna die.
Yeah.
And it was very sad for me, and I didn't know what to do. And I thought that my whole life was like this. I was like, go goodbye to my dreams, goodbye to my goals, goodbye to everything. So, but later I remember still the words of my first doctor. He was like, everything is gonna be okay, and I was like, no, everything is not okay.
Yeah.
And he held my hand, and he was like, he looked at my eyes. I felt that he was looking to my soul, and he was like, trust me, you're gonna be okay. And I was like, okay, I trust you. And later, like, I realized that, well, yes, there's now medication, and the reality is that I'm always telling people, like, do I look like I have HIV? And people are like, what do you have? Are you living with HIV?
Yeah.
And that's what's one of the things that make me realize that there's still so much stigma and discrimination, like, around HIV, and especially on the Latino community, on the immigrant community, just in the LGBTQ plus community in general. There is still a lot of stigma and discrimination. Like, people still believe that HIV can be transmitted through saliva, through kisses, through hugs, through, like, being, I don't know, like, to be in contact, just physical contact with someone with HIV. And I'm like, well, hi, I'm living with HIV. And people are like, what? And sometimes they don't know what to do. And like, so I like to bring that education and awareness everywhere that I go. So it's like if I want to make people feel uncomfortable, so I'm like, no, you need to educate yourself, because you are probably harming people, because it's very hard living with HIV. It's like if I really make the comparison with being part of the LGBTQ plus community, how you need to disclose. It's the same. Like, a lot of times living with HIV is like being in the closet. Like, you cannot tell everyone because people are going to reject you. People are going to discriminate you. People is going to have a lot of stigma towards you. And a lot of times you don't know who's living with HIV. And it's interesting because we don't do the same with people living with cancer or diabetes. Like, we don't blame them for their conditions. And people living with HIV, we do. It's like, oh, you have HIV? And I'm always telling people, like, oh, sorry for being a human being. Sorry for, I didn't create the virus. Like, like, what? Sorry for being a human. Sorry for have sexual interactions. And so there is still a lot of stigma and discrimination. And I want to actively fight against that.
Yeah, and I think, too, that there's a clear lack of education in regards to people in schools, or even from young, learning about HIV and what it really is. You once said something that I thought was really important to bring up during here, and I have it here. And you said, I was trafficked because of my race, because I'm an immigrant, because of my membership in the LGBTQ community, because of my lack of finances, my lack of knowledge for the laws in this country. So really, how do these intersectionalities come to play in making somebody vulnerable?
Yes, the reality is that the two main forms that the United States recognize of human trafficking is sex and labor trafficking. Traffickers are just looking for a moment of vulnerability. The reality is that the most impacted communities that we see are people of color, black people, immigrants, people who are not able to speak English, indigenous people. And that's the reality. On sex trafficking, we see people being exploited in prostitution, in pornography, in OnlyFans, in all these things that a lot of times we think it's a joke. Well, it's not a joke.
Yeah, it's not funny.
It's truly is abuse, violence towards our communities, and we should start speaking about this, because the reality is that while we are speaking right now, exploitation is happening. Probably to college students, probably to people who are even hearing this. And labor trafficking is also happening. Like, labor trafficking is really happening in all industries. I'm always telling people, like, where do you think all your vegetables and your fruits are coming from? It's labor trafficking from immigrants. Like, and nobody care. Like, nobody care. If you really want to make a change, like, start educating yourself about human trafficking. Human trafficking is happening all around us. Human trafficking is not only change, kidnapping, like crossing international borders, but there is a lot of human trafficking domestically. Also, like, human trafficking happens a lot of times from partners, family members. It can be your professor. There can be cases like that. It can be your employer. It can be your friend. It can be someone from your own community. And that's very important to highlight. I think that that's one of the main concerns that human trafficking it can look like. I'm going to give you an opportunity. Trust me. This is something that you are choosing to do, and that is the entry point.
I feel like in college, are you more vulnerable to things like human trafficking because of like your circumstance at the time? Like you're in a new community, things like that.
Yes, I think that when we talk about human trafficking, I think that we have a lot of perceptions, but I'm always emphasizing that the college community students are extremely vulnerable. I don't know why nobody's talking about this. I don't know why we are not going to campuses to talk about human trafficking. Most of college students have economic hardships. Most of college students are out of the city, or they are coming from different countries. Here, especially here in New York, they're coming from other states. They are coming from rural communities, or they are not from the city. So everything is new for them. So this put them in very, very high risk. A lot of times we think that human trafficking is just happening in other countries. Of course, it's not happening in your city. Human trafficking is happening very highly in your city.
Yeah, and do you feel like on the way it's talked about on social media, people think it's like a frivolous kind of thing, like you'll see like I'm sure it's like a fake post on TikTok about what's happening, but it's not. Sorry to cut you off.
Always, all the time. I feel that when people hear human trafficking, they think about three things: crossing borders, chains, and a basement. Yes, there are cases like that, but that is not the most common cases in most of the cities. A lot of times you are free to move around. The main component of human trafficking is coercion. And that's why college students are very vulnerable, because it can come as a employment offer. It can come as a way like, oh, you don't have money to pay your books. You don't have money to pay your tuition. I can offer you an employment so you can be stable while you finish your college. And it's also very connected with sugaring and OnlyFans.
Okay.
This is the entry point for human trafficking, and I think that we are normalizing it. We are like, sells your food pics and there's no harm on this, and it's like, well, yes, there's a harm of it. Like, we are normalizing it. Like, we should offer students like real financial opportunities for them instead of normalizing grooming tactics. So
and I feel like you have to resort. You feel like you have to resort to things like that, because I know too, like, I don't know, for a long time, it's like a joke, like, go on a sugar website, go on this, go on that, you know, like, just to make a couple dollars. And it's really sad, you know. You said too before that when people think of human trafficking, it can think of like chains in a basement, but it really can be the people that you put your trust into. So like, I couldn't even imagine that, especially like you don't want to think that the person is looking at you as profit, right?
Yes, exactly. It's just like that. And it's the same that I was telling you, like with college students, that when we are doing sugaring and OnlyFans, what we are doing is that we are selling us as things. We are dehumanizing ourselves, and we are seeing that as a joke. But the reality is that we are normalizing exploitation, and people, traffickers, exploiters, sex buyers, they see us as things. They see us as profitable things. Like, and the reality is that I was there. I was being exploited. Like, people never care if I was the right choice. People never asked me if I was enjoying it, if I was consenting. People don't care. That's the reality. And
it's sad when it really comes down to that. It's people don't care.
It is, because people don't care. Just because there is an exchange of money, or because people is giving you something, they have the privilege of they think that they own you for a certain amount of time and that they can abuse you. And it's like, oh, I'm not abusing you because you're consenting. No, you're abusing me because I'm vulnerable. And I think that that's when it plays the role of my immigration status, my race, how vulnerable I am. And we need to start seeing that. And we need to start having these conversations. And we need to start like really having this very nuanced conversation around it. One of the big things that I'm always talking about is that, and it's a very polarized topic, that it's very connected with OnlyFans and sugaring, is like prostitution is not a form of work, and it cannot be. Because it starts like a joke, like, oh, what about if you get a couple of dollars just by engaging in prostitution? And it's like, but what are the odds of you getting hit, of getting raped, of getting HIV, of getting STIs just because you were vulnerable, because you just needed a couple of money? We need real financial solutions instead of telling our students, vulnerable people, like, go and sell yourself just as a piece of meat. That is not a solution. We need real solutions. I know what is the aftermath of being bought and sold, of being exploited, of being treated as a disposable thing. And I don't want anybody going through that, especially like college students. That's not the solution. But I think that we need better solutions. I think that we need more scholarships. Seriously, like the government, everybody should invest more in students. Like there's not enough like financial resources, so all the vulnerable people can like really go for education and not be worried about their financial security.
Yeah. Well, you have given so many great insights during this interview, and I really appreciate it because it has opened my eyes to the topic, and I'm sure it will open a lot of people's eyes to it and push them to become more educated on the topic. So thank you so much. Going to the end of this interview, I love to ask my guests one last final question, and that is, what is their CUNY survival item? I think it's good to end on this light note for this interview too. So my CUNY survival item is an iced coffee in my notes app. I say it every episode. I have a large iced coffee probably every morning. It's probably not the best, but it is what it is. So for you, what is your CUNY survival item?
I would say that my Google Calendar, I'm always telling everyone that if it's not on my Google Calendar, it's not happening. But I would say also that my self-care, to be honest.
Self-care, okay.
Yeah, self-care is so important, and it's a must.
And I know people, when they think self-care, it can be something small like a face mask or a bath. Is that what it looks like for you?
Trust me, self-care is so different for everyone. Self-care for me is like sitting down. It can be 3 things. Watching anime, eating snacks, playing video games with all the volume out, or just reading manga. That's truly self-care for me.
Those are the simple pleasures in life. Yes. Well, again, thank you so much for being on CUNY Uncut. This really has been great.
Thank you.
Well, that is a wrap on today's episode. Thank you so much for tuning in. Make sure to check out CUNY Uncut on social media. And once again, I am your host, Isabel Ortiz. I'll see you guys next time. Bye.